future in this business.
You only gonna hold it till I say, all right, man, I got your shot.
Y'all it is.
Y'all been wrong.
Fly all over the place.
You shot it already? All right, turn it my way. Hold on, man. Oh, I thought you should. Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
It's gonna start. Snoop.
You want to move that chair out to the sun?
Yeah.
Like over here somewhere.
Are you sure?
Yeah, yeah. Bring it over here. Bring it over here. Get out of the sun. There you go. They're coming? All right.
Hey. Is there anybody that I haven't spoken to today? Oh, is that Dana over there?
Good morning.
Hey, are you with the News Corps these days?
I am.
Dana TV?
I am Dana TV.
Awesome.
Morning, Jeff.
Morning.
Number one fan.
What's up, bud?
I'm not your number one fan, but I'm definitely your number one fan.
All right, I'm just gonna
And I don't think I know.
water here.
For Dana. Let's see if you can get through this without.
All right, bottle of water.
Yeah, we got some water coming out.
Hey, Jeff. I'm Aaron Diamond.
Hi, Aaron. Good to meet you.
Good to meet you. Thanks for making some time.
And by the way, before we get started, a few people misspelled my name yesterday. It's Geoff. Short for, yeah, someone got the alpha.
So, I think I've done an interview with every single person out here today. Is that right? Is that, am I missing anybody? Okay. So I'll let Jeff go ahead and lead off, and he might have some information that I didn't give you earlier. So, and if you guys have any questions for me, then just ask for me specifically. Otherwise, I'll just. I mean, I don't want to be a prop, but you know, if you need me, I'll be over here.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm Jeff Ledoux from PLZ Corporation. We're the parent company for Apollo Technologies. I'm from the St. Louis area. That's where our operational headquarters is based. And I flew down early yesterday morning to deal with the crisis here in Smyrna. I just wanted to give you some updates as of today. I'm not going to go back through the information that was presented yesterday, but of course at the end, if you have any questions, I'll be available. Jason will be available to take those questions. First and foremost, our number one priority is to clean up the contamination that occurred, specifically the creek, excuse me. And regarding that impacted creek, we've seen a visual improvement in the quality of the water over the last 24 hours, and we have it on the chart over here showing that. When I first arrived yesterday morning, the picture on the top is it's kind of that white milky substance at the collection point at the dam, and just below that was a picture that we took around noon today. So just in a 24-hour period, with the help of our environmental cleanup crew, the EPA, the Georgia EPD, we've made tremendous progress just in the last 24 hours. It's far from over. We're going to continue this until the authorities have assured us that the water is clean and the creek is back to normal conditions. We are continuing to investigate what happened. As you know, it happened on Friday night into Saturday morning. We didn't have the opportunity to interview our employees who were off work for the weekend. So today we're continuing the investigation by interviewing our employees, the manager who was on site at the time, and the employees who found the problem and assisted with the cleanup. As I told you yesterday, we had suspended production operations today. We did have all of our employees show up for work. All of our employees will continue to show up for work, will continue to get paid. We have them working on non-production activities in the building. Our plan, and the other important thing is the tank that was holding this solvent that was released has been permanently taken out of service. So that tank that had the gasket failure on the side of it, that particular tank will never be used again for either manufacturing or holding material. It's been disconnected electrically, pneumatically, and it will no longer be used. So we've eliminated that as a potential future recurrence. Our plan is tomorrow we will restart some filling operations. We're not going to be mixing any new product, but the goal is to empty the tanks that are still full of product that are in that room where the incident occurred. The best way for us to do that is to fill it into the finished good containers. The purpose of that is to empty all of the batch tanks in the room. After that's done, we've hired a professional engineering firm to come in and inspect each and every mixing tank in that room to ensure the integrity of the tank, so that we don't have an incident like we had on Friday night. We've also hired a separate professional engineering firm, someone that we've worked with in the past, Washington Engineering and Architecture. They're actually out of Missouri, to evaluate the design of the mixing room itself and to determine why the containment failed. We've also hired an additional environmental firm, Environmental International Corporation. They're monitoring the air quality surrounding the property, surrounding the creek. They're taking water samples in the creek itself and also sampling the waste that's been collected to determine how it needs to be treated. We will release any results, any data that we have on that water as soon as it's available. We don't have any test results at this point in time. And we continue to cooperate with all the agencies. I did want to point out, because we didn't mention yesterday, that the Georgia Department of Natural Resources Fishery Division was on site as soon as all of the authorities were notified. They were part of the cleanup effort, and they were part of directing how we go about doing that to minimize the impact on the environment and on the wildlife. So that is the latest information, everything we've been working on today. We're going to continue the investigation, obviously continuing the cleanup, and doing everything we possibly can to prevent another incident like this from happening.
Jeff, it looks like when the containment failed, there's pictures out there. One of the employees, it looks like, hosing the chemical into a drain and then out and on and on. Is that normal operating procedures here?
That would not be normal operating procedures, and that's what we're investigating to find out who participated in that cleanup, exactly what they did, and all of those employee interviews are being conducted today.
I know that your company's only owned this property about
8 months.
There are problems here on this property date back decades. Your plan is to remediate and work on that, because a lot of folks in the neighborhood, they've heard this time and time again, and I know there's new owners, but they don't seem convinced just based on the track record of this property.
Okay, that's fair. As you said, we acquired the property, we acquired the company and their properties 8 months ago. The properties are actually owned by the previous company owner. They were not acquired as part of PLZ. The historical issues that we've had on this property and the cleanup of those historical issues is the responsibility of the previous owner of the business. So we were fully aware of that, but the owner of the business has fully cooperated with the Georgia EPD. We reviewed all of that documentation as part of the due diligence before we bought the company, and we were assured that the owner of the property would continue to work on the cleanup. That has been actively occurring at this site. It's been ongoing. I can tell you that those types of cleanups can take a very long time, But we have hired our own firm. It's called RPS Gaiatech. They were the professional engineers that were part of the due diligence, and they are monitoring that cleanup process and reporting back to PLZ so that we can make sure that the prior owner is doing what he promised he was going to do.
But is there a promise or commitment this company can make to the neighbors in the surrounding area?
My commitment to the neighbors in this area is, as I said with this investigation, we are doing everything we possibly can to prevent a recurrence of an incident like this. Working with EPA, EPD, everyone, we've been very open about what happened, about what we're doing to mitigate it, and whatever resources we need to make this better, we're going to put those resources in place, whether it's capital investment in the facility, additional human resources on the ground. We will do what it takes to prevent another incident like this.
Is there some sort of dam system you could put up so if something like this was to occur again, it wouldn't get past a certain point?
That we're actually talking about that. So the point at which the chemical entered the storm drain. There's a storm drain out in that area, which is designed for rainwater runoff. It makes its way down into the creek. What I have seen at other sites is to have the ability to have a shutoff valve on that drain so that if an incident like this were to occur, you could shut it off and prevent the contaminants from going down. So that is certainly something that we're looking into.
Can you speak any more about the chemical makeup of the solution that spilled?
I believe we've released the SDS, the safety data sheet. In that SDS is all of the chemical constituents that were in there. It's a carburetor cleaner. It's a solvent-based cleaning product, obviously not intended to go down the drain or be disposed of in any way. So we know what those constituents are, and that's how we're going to be able to test the quality of the water in the creek to determine when it's reached normal levels. So just recently, Jason and I have discussed this with Georgia EPD to give us what are the normal levels that would be considered for a creek like that. And we will keep testing as the cleanup proceeds to make sure that those levels are below where they need to be. That's how we'll know when we're done. How long that will take, nobody knows. Jason wouldn't dare to guess. We'll continue this for as long as it takes to get that creek clean.
And just so I'm clear on this, when you bought the company, you mentioned that you didn't buy the product. I mean, just so I can explain that to my neighbors. What's the relationship?
So we bought Apollo Technologies. We bought the business, which includes all of the production assets. So the equipment, the tanks, everything is needed to make the products was part of the purchase. The real estate was not. So the real property was not part of that. We leased the facilities from the prior owner.
So we're clear. So basically today we're saying that tremendous progress over the last 24 hours from the pictures themselves, and then we will continue to clean, do whatever's necessary to get the creek back to where it was.
Correct.
And at this point we don't have a time frame.
We do not. We can't give you a time frame. It's not our call. We're obviously we've hired the people that are doing the cleanup. They work for Apollo Technologies, but it will really be up to the Georgia EPD and federal EPA to tell us when the job is done.
You still have some neighbors out there, despite all the work. You still have neighbors out there concerned about their safety and the safety of the children. Do they have anything to be worried about, in your opinion, about their safety?
As we said yesterday, we urge people to stay clear of the creek. You wouldn't want to touch the water. You certainly wouldn't want to come into contact with the water. That's the only thing we can say at this point. We have been doing air monitoring. We don't see anything to be concerned with about the quality of the air. It's well below toxic levels.
Do you have an estimated cost of the cleanup?
I do not. And honestly, we're not concerned about that.
And just some other numbers. I think I gave some of you some numbers, but I think the last number that I got was about 280,000 gallons of the wastewater has been collected and stored, and it's being stored on property somewhere
Yes.
until they can get lab results back for disposal at a facility. So, just some numbers
So
for you.
obviously, the way that we have to treat that waste will impact the cost. We just don't have any way of knowing at this point.
And then after this is all done, you're going to go back and maybe look at the, I think you touched on this, the sediment, the soil, possibly that any of the solvent may have gotten into that.
That's a EPD or EPA's call on what we have to do beyond making sure the water is clean.
So right, so we had so we had a meeting earlier, and we discussed basically a sampling plan, if you will, to collect water samples, but also collect sediment samples. And I told them, I expressed, collecting at surface level, and then say going down like 6 inches to see if there is contamination of the sediment, what is the extent of that. And if it comes back that the sediment has been impacted, then some type of dredging, shovels, or a small excavator will have to go in there and clear up those sediments.
So that's down the line right now. just
That
like
correct. Yeah.
Quick question.
Yes,
Can
sir.
you address the timeline as when this was reported versus the time it actually went into the storm drain?
That's what we're investigating now, including our review of surveillance video that we have on the property. We know that the batch was made on Thursday, this past Thursday. We know it sat in the tank until Friday night. The team locked up and went home around 5:30 on Friday night. The first group that arrived Saturday morning was around 7:20 a.m. And it was somewhere around 8 o'clock that they first discovered a spill within the facility. They did not realize at that time the extent of the spill or the amount of product that spilled at that point in time. I can say this, what we have found from our video surveillance, now this is not a monitored, this is surveillance camera for security purposes, but we did see late Friday night, and I can't give you an exact time, liquid flowing from that room outside of the building.
I can tell you
So-
what time it was.
Okay, well, someone else has more information than I
My
have,
neighborhood,
but it
because
happened.
2 a.m. They were actually, my creek was white at 2 a.m.
Okay,
So
and at
EPA
that
wasn't
time,
called until 10:45, I believe it was, 20 minutes after I made the phone call to EPA. So the concern is that you guys I'm so sorry you bought this facility, and AMC Ventures, the Callis family, I'm sure is happy that you bought it from. But my neighborhood saw the creek white at 2 a.m. My neighbor texted me at 6 and said our creek is completely white, and I'm the one that came up here, and it wasn't subtle. There were no spill mats put out on the ground out here. The gentleman who I was actually in the pictures yesterday, was not happy that I was asking him about the chemicals. And I said, why are you spraying this down into the storm drain, which feeds my creek? And he was like, oh, I need to call somebody. I said, that's when everything hit the fan.
I don't mean to cut you off,
Yeah.
but did you have a question, or
That was the question.
or is that a statement?
It was both.
Okay.
so what's the question?
Question is, you've addressed this. The gentleman, I think that said, the gentleman from the Georgia, actually the Cobb County storm drain stormwater, said that you guys had 3 days to answer when it actually was noticed. And I just heard you say this, that when they came in,
They came in,
Saturday
they
morning
noticed it at 7:20.
more or less,
That's when they first noticed that there was a
and it
spill.
wasn't subtle. I mean, it was about an inch deep river coming into the storm drain, and the Hispanic gentleman was pressure washing or power washing this stuff down into the storm drain. So,
That, again,
Yeah.
that's being investigated.
okay, good.
I don't
Wanna make
want
sure
I don't want to
that's know that
speak
it's not-
until
yeah.
we finish our investigation.
Right.
We're talking to all the employees to figure it out. I think the fact remains that, and as you noticed, that you said 2 a.m. in the creek, so the leak occurred Friday night into Saturday morning.
Yes, sir.
That
That's
much we
exactly
do
what I
know.
would like
So
to hear
whatever
ratified.
actions were taken after the fact doesn't change the fact that the tank let loose, the
Right.
containment didn't hold it, and it made it to that drain. And that's what we are focused on
Right.
is how
And
did
thank you for
what
that.
are we doing about the tank? What are we doing about the containment? And how do we prevent any future incident of material getting
Right.
into that creek?
Well, we appreciate that.
That's my responsibility.
Thank you.
Okay?
I appreciate
We will
that.
deal with the employees and the action they took. Those are, those are internal issues that I have to deal with here. But I don't want to start making decisions or accusing people until we've fully investigated what happened.
I appreciate
I
that.
need to be
Thank
fair.
you.
So, sir, at this point, we think that the leak started
We can confirm the leak started. We have video somewhere around 7:30 p.m. and it's not great video because again it's surveillance just in that back corner, but you can see a liquid flowing outside of the building. So,
Notice on Saturday.
so your timeline of 2 a.m. when you noticed it, that clearly means there was a leak overnight
And
that got into the creek. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and the white occurs from the solvent
Right.
hitting the water. So, I mean,
like
it
pine
turns,
sol. Yeah, the water turns white.
yes, that's a good example.
Except the frogs aren't thinking it's a clean solution. So, for the fish.
Any other questions?
Just for safekeeping, names and spelling again and titles.
Okay, my name is Jeff Ledoux, first name Geoff, last name Ladue. My title is Chief Operating Officer for PLZ Aeroscience Corporation, and we are the parent company for Apollo Technologies.
Yeah, sorry. Jason Booth, JASONBOOTH, with EPA Region 4 in Atlanta, Emergency Response. No problem. Anybody have anything else for either myself or Jeff? Anyone?
Sorry that it's so hot. It's hotter in St. Louis. So, thanks everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.